welcome to another episode of Game Theory, the #1 MMA DFS prep show in all of the land. I am your host, M.O.N.K, aka the Monk-Matician, and in this very episode, guys and girls, we have got a banger of a pay-per-view, UFC 288 in Newark, New Jersey. Hopefully you can get there if you're in the area. We've got a title fight, finally. Aljamain Sterling defending his belt against the long-time trash talker, king of cringe, Henry Cejudo. We've got Gilbert Burns coming on, a quick turnaround, going up against Belal Muhammad. That one will be a banger. Jessica Andrade back at strawweight. One of my personal favorites, Movsar Evloev. Dude is a beast. Going up against Bryce Mitchell, attempting to come back off of that KO loss. The return of Gracie, my guy from Omaha, Drew Dober. Let's go, man. I mean, Rodriguez Jandiroba is on the undercard. That's insane. Everybody's favorite heavyweight, Parker Porter. I mean, Jesus, I could go on, and I almost did. But that's how excited I am for UFC 288. In this show, guys, we are going to be breaking down some great DFS stats, the most pertinent stats that you can find, and helping you build those GPP tournaments. Before we get started, please check out DFSArmy.com. Use code M.O.N.K, M-O.N.K, save yourself 10% on a subscription VIP package today. We've got tons of experts in every single sport, guys, winning people money left and right. Our users win money over at DFS Army, I mean, we've got NASCAR kicking off. We've got F1 going on, esports. We've got baseball going, basketball playoffs, all kinds of stuff other than just MMA. So get on over DFSArmy.com. Use code MONK, save yourself some money today. And without further ado, guys, let's get right in the card, UFC 288. First fight of the night, we've got Daniel Santos going against Johnny Munoz Jr. Santos 8,400, Munoz Jr. 7,800. We'll start with the Santos side. Let's see, he is, actually before we get into it, look at the perimeter here, right up top, the top line. 8,400 is the salary, then we've got the records right in the middle there, pro record, UFC. L5 means last 5 pro record, no matter if it's UFC or not. And then you see exact. Exact is the number of, in this instance, 3-round bantamweight fights that that our fighters have been through. Santos has 0 of those fights. It looks like both of his fights so far in the UFC were at catchweight, one against Castaneda and one against Arce. So it's going to say 0 for 0 here under exact salary. And usually those are the stats you're going to see. For instance, Johnny Munoz Jr., his exact record is 2-1. All of those stats are the 2-1. In those 3 fights, those are the stats you're going to see. So that's kind of how that breaks down. Most of the time it's exact, unless my guys or girls are 0-0. Then we really go on the probably their last 5 or career, I should specify. But all of their numbers are right up top. And we'll get right into it. Daniel Santos, 8,400 in his career so far, 2 UFC fights. As I mentioned, he's getting outpaced big time. Less than 3 points per minute, 4.29 is what he allows. At distance, he's getting outpaced by 1.31 points per minute. Inside the distance, he's scoring well. 5.14 points a minute, but getting 6.62 points a minute scored on him. Not a good look for sure. When he does win, in his one UFC win, 119 is what he put up, and his opponent put up 53.5 points in that fight for an incredible, 173 basically, as far as points go for the total fight. That is a ridiculously high amount of points. When he lost, he scored 21 and gave up 81, so barely 100 in when he lost there. Significant strikes landed per minute, 4.82, has a takedown defense of just 57%, spends 16.35% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, controls 41% of that grappling time, so a little less than half. His ceiling is just what he scored in a win, and his floor is what he scored in a loss, because we have no other fights to go on based on standard deviation. 1 for 1 as far as wins in the triple digits. He put up 70 bonus points in that second round win. I believe that would have been against Castaneda. And he's, 70 strength of schedule, 70.24 in his last 5 strength of schedule. I calculate that just like the BCS did for the NCAA. So you want it right at about 70. That's where Daniel Santos is at. His last 5 opponent record, 69-23, and he has made the optimal lineup in 1 out of his past 2 fights. That would have been that second round knockout. So some decent numbers here from the third fight. I don't know what I'm saying. Decent numbers from Daniel Santos coming into his third UFC fight. There we go. Johnny Munoz Jr. outpacing his opponent 3.18 to 1.84, so almost doubling him up there. At distance, he's outpacing him, but inside the distance, guys, so far in his three-round bantamweight fights, in which he is 2-1. Again, that's where I get the exact record from, and that's where all these stats come from. 5 points a minute inside the distance for Johnny Munoz. 1.28 is all he allows, and he does have 4 UFC fights, but we're only counting 3 of them. One of them was at featherweight. His first fight in the UFC was against Nate Menes at featherweight, so we are not counting that one because it's not at bantamweight. DraftKings points per win, 87.25, 16 is what he gave up, and when he did lose, he put up less than 1 point. Quick loss, I believe it was against Gravely, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Tony Gravely put him out quick. 4 points a minute, or 4 strikes landed a minute, 100% takedown defense, 26% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, but he controls 3/4 of that fight time. Actually, it's a low ceiling for Johnny Munoz Jr. 91.32 and an extremely low floor. Has yet to clear triple digits, 50 bonus points per win. But again, a decent strength of schedule, right where you want it to be, minimum 70 points. We are at 70.75. Has yet to make the optimal lineup. 0 for 3 in 3-round bantamweight fights since 2021. I think this is a banger of a fight to open up the card. Both guys have finished fights in the UFC. I personally like Daniel Santos. I will probably have a bit more of him rostered than Munoz Jr. I just don't quite trust Munoz Jr. yet. That said, Santos hasn't really given me a whole lot to trust either. He won his fight late in the second round, so he at least put in about 10 minutes of fight time. Munoz Jr. has almost 40 minutes of fight time, average just under 10 minutes. So I do think this one ends inside the distance. I think this one is a good fight to target for a first fight of the night. And I like Santos a little bit more than Munoz Jr. Very similar salaries, so it should not be difficult to get to either one of them. Claudio Ribeiro going against Ugly Man Holmes here. 8,900 for Ribeiro in his second UFC fight. Lost his first one to, I believe, Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Second round KO TKO. Al Hassan finished him within the first minute of the second round. Ugly Man Holmes, let's see, 1-2 in the UFC, with his only win coming against the incredible Alan Amedovski. I mean, what is there to say about the great and powerful Alan Amedovski? That's who Ugly Man Holmes beat in his one UFC fight. We'll start with Ribeiro here. His UFC record 0-1, as I said. 2.32, if I could read, is what he scores per minute. 4.5 points is what he allowed per minute against Al Hassan. 3.29 points a minute at distance, and getting more than doubled up at distance, allowing 6.57. Inside the distance, he basically negligible. Might as well say 0 points, allowed 2.6. No wins. Only scored 12.68 in the loss, gave up 95. 3.47 strikes landed per minute. 100% takedown defense in that fight. Controlled, or actually spent 62% of his fight time fighting inside the distance. Controlled less than 8% of that fight time, guys. His ceiling is just the average for the division. Let's see, 61 strength of schedule, so leaves a lot to be desired is what I'm trying to say. You want it to be at least 70. We're barely at 60 here. 0 for 1 obviously did not make the optimal lineup, so Ribeiro has a lot to answer for in this fight. 8,900 is a very expensive price to pay for a guy we don't know a lot about. Only saw him for about 5 minutes. What did he land? He landed 19 strikes in 5 minutes, took 17, and he got KO'd. 17 strikes in 5, almost 6 minutes. Yeah, he's gonna. I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to get to him, but Joseph Holmes, I mean, not great either. Allowed 2.82 points, scoring only 2.66, so he has been getting outscored. At distance, he's outscoring his opponents, by a whole point plus. But inside the distance, it's the opposite. Scoring only 2, allowing 3.3. When he did win, he put up 112 and allowed just 0.4. But when he lost, scored only 21. Allows only 84 on average in his 2 losses. 3.6 strikes landed per minute, so even more than Claudio Ribeiro landed. 50% takedown defense, not great. 50% of his time spent fighting inside the distance, controlled only 35.7% of that time. Ceiling is just what he scored in his one UFC win. His floor is 27, almost 28 points. 90 points when he did win, as I said, Alan Amedovski, so you got to throw that one right out the window. Strength of schedule is barely better than Ribeiro, 60. Actually, no, it's worse. Then Ribeiro, 60.32, has made the optimal in 1 out of his past 3 fights. It would have been, again, the aforementioned Alan Amedovski. I have no idea what to do here. I really don't think you can back Joseph Holmes, even at 7,300. I mean, maybe a little bit. The dogs have been barking like crazy lately, but this is a decent card with a ton of fights on it, so I don't really expect him to get the win. I think Ribeiro, I think they want him. I don't know if they want him to get a win. I'm not going to say that, but I think this is a decent rebound spot for him. 8,900 is very expensive. I don't know what to expect here, because short of a first-round knockout, Ribeiro's probably not going to score too well unless he lands a couple of knockdowns. So give me Ribeiro, I guess, but I'm going to play the ownership game with this. I don't really want to roster Ugly Man Holmes. Like I said, his only UFC win is against pretty much the worst fighter in the division ever, in Alan Amedovski. So I'm not really too comfortable with that. So give me, I guess, Claudio Ribeiro for the win and a little bit rostered. But like I said, I'm going to see what the ownership is. Maybe like 20% Ribeiro. I don't know. I'm just not too comfortable going much more than that. And once again, Zhalgas Zhumagulov is going to attempt to not lose by decision here, going against UFC debutant Rafael Estevam. I believe he is Brazilian. I hope he is, or otherwise it's a hard Rafael. But we're going to go with Rafael here and keep our fingers crossed. Zhalgas is the dog in this spot, as he probably should be. 7,900. He is 14-8 as a pro, 1-5 in the UFC. Last 5, 1-4, and his exact record being 3-round flyweight fights. 1-4 as well. He's only 5'4" switch stance fighter. 2.92 points per minute, getting outscored rather. 3.63 is what he gets hit with. 2.45 at distance, 3.37 is what he allows, and inside the distance is kind of where he shines, I guess. 3.29 points a minute, allowing just 2.38. Scored only 94 in his one win at the weight class. In his loss, he's giving up only 90 points per loss. That's not terrible, scoring 36. 5 strikes landed per minute. That is very, very high. He's a very high-paced fighter, as you would imagine. 67% takedown defense, 23% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, controls 60% of that fight time. He has a very high floor, 52, almost 53 points. This is over 4 flyweight fights, but his ceiling is very low. Just his one win at the weight class, 94. Has yet to break 100 points. Did finish that. That was a 90-point bonus point win, so he only scored 4.36 points in that first round before he won. So did not get a triple-digit score, even though he got a first-round victory. Keep that in mind. 75.64 is a very good strength of schedule. Has yet to make the optimal lineup. 0 for 5. A big 0 for 5 since 21. We did just see that, though, with Yadong Song, who was also 0 for 5. Did turn it around and made the optimal lineup there. So he's now 1 for 6. Meanwhile, Estevam, he fought at flyweight, outlanded the guy 48 strikes to 3. It looks like in the Dana White Contender Series. I don't know why I don't have the stats up here. It doesn't matter. Also landed 2 takedowns. Absolutely worked Mr. Elias here. Finished him in the second round. I mean, my goodness, just complete domination. But supposedly, Esteban put up 7.5 points a minute in that fight, 125.6. Strength of schedule is 69.55, so it's decent for a newcomer. We're almost at 70. If you round up, that's a big 70 right there. 59-20 is his last 5 opponents' record. And he's much bigger. 5'8" flyweight, guys. 5'8", 125, 69-inch reach here. And he's, 8 years younger than Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I like Esteban here, 8,300. I'm going to gladly pay that low salary to see what this guy is all about. I'm probably not going to go crazy with it, but we've got some flyweights here. Could be an interesting fight, especially the way Zhalgas fights. I want to see what Esteban can do here, but yeah, I'm very excited for this one. I think it has an okay chance of making the optimal lineup overall, so give me a bunch, not a bunch, but a decent amount of Rafael Esteban and Zhalgas, man. I don't know if I could trust him, even if he wins, like I said. Got that first round finish and only scored 94 points. I'm going to have to go probably under on Zhumagulov here, even... actually, yeah, he's a very expensive dog. 7,900 this week, 1-4. Remember, at the weight class. 1-4 in 3-round flyweight fights. So maybe he can't be trusted.
Fuck little bodies!
In the fourth fight of the night, we have got Aliskerov going against UFC veteran Phil Hawes. We'll start with Phil Hawes here. Only 7,100 for a pretty prolific DraftKings scorer when he does actually win, he has a decent record, 4.2, and his exact record is also 4.2 3-round middleweight fights. Scores damn near 5 points per minute, allowing just 2.25, so over 2 to 1. Putting up 4 points a minute at distance, allowing just 2.6. Inside the distance, it's even better, putting up 4.52 points, allowing just 1.28. DraftKings points per win over his 4 wins, 113.5, allowing just 17. Scores 15.5 per loss, allows 109 when he does lose. So does allow quite a few points in his 2 UFC losses. 5.82 strikes landed per minute, 100% takedown defense. And I did check, opponents are 0-7 in takedowns, takedowns attempted against him. So it's basically won a fight, but still 100% takedown defense. 46, almost 47% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance. Controls 80.5% of that fight time, guys. Huge ceiling, 131.72 for Phil Hawes. Decent floor, actually just okay, maybe a little average, 19.4. Wins greater than 100%. He's got 2 of them out of 4 for 50%. 61.25 bonus points per win. Very good strength of schedule. Decent is 70. We're way over that here at 74.51. And he has made the optimal lineup in 2 of his 5 3-round middleweight fights since 2021. I mean, a decent play here at 7,100. This is a UFC veteran. He put Jourdain Win in his place. He got dealt with against my guy Roman Dolidze. Chris Curtis beat him as a minus 290 favorite. Was Phil Hawes. Beat Kyle Daukaus and then Nasruddin Imavov. And now he's got a UFC debutant here. Yes, he's got an OV in his name, Aliskerov, but a UFC debutant nonetheless. And if the dogs are barking like they have been, I mean, come on, man. You can't count Phil Hawes out at 7,100. If he wins, it's slate-breaking material. As I said, he scores well over 4 points a minute in every facet of the game. I absolutely love it here. He's got some very good wrestling, very good grappling time, 61.2 bonus points per minute. I mean, come on. How do you not like that? His opponent, Aliskerov, who I have briefly mentioned, $9,100 this week, so pretty pricey for a UFC debutant. He just has the average ceiling and floor for the division. 64 is his strength of schedule, so 10.5 points lower than Phil Hawes. 76-43 is his last 5 opponents' record. 4 wins in his pro career by KO TKO, 5 sub wins, 3 decision wins. Absolutely whooped his opponent's ass, Mario Souza, in the Dana White Contender Series fight. Would have scored 3.95 points a minute, but only 98.49 points in that first round sub win. So just like Zhumagulov, finished the fight in the first round, did not score triple digits, guys. At 9,100, that's unlikely to make the optimal lineup with 14 fights on the card. So I'm going to play the ownership game here and definitely do your tape on Aliskerov. I definitely need to see what this guy is all about and see how comfortable you are rostering him at 9,100. But remember, Phil Hawes is a UFC veteran, 6 UFC fights, has almost 50 minutes of UFC cage time compared to 2 minutes of Dana White Contender Series cage time for Ikram. So don't count Phil Hawes out. Like I said, slate-breaking material at 7,100, and I will have both sides of this fight rostered. Not quite sure who I'm going to pick yet. I like this fight for DraftKings. In our one and only heavyweight fight of the night, we have the return of everyone's favorite, Parker Porter, going against Braxton Smith. We'll start with Braxton Smith here, 33-year-old UFC debutant, 5'11" heavyweight, should be noted. Let's see, I have no stats for him. He has no Dana White Contender Series fights, no UFC fights. He is 5-1 professionally. All of his wins and his one loss have come by way of KO TKO, and I don't even know if one of his fights has lasted longer than 3 minutes. I think he's got about less than 10 minutes of total fight time in his career, in his all 6 of his wins and his one loss, or all 6 of his fights, I should say. His strength of schedule, very, very poor. One of the worst on the entire card, 55.53, not even close to 70. 21-19 in his last 5 opponents' pro record, so barely 500 there. Did lose his first pro fight and then has rattled off 5 straight wins. Like I said, all of them have been very, very early first round KO TKOs. Parker Porter, UFC veteran Parker Porter, put some respect on my name. Parker Porter, 8,600, has lost by KO TKO in 2 of his 3 losses. Not a good look for, going against a guy who just deletes people in the first round. 3 decision wins, has been subbed once. Ass whoop index in all 6 fights, minus 4.61, so not the best at all. His pro record 13-8. In the UFC is 3-3. 38-year-old heavyweight here, 75-inch reach, and will be the taller fighter at 6 foot. His overall pace is greater than his opponents, just barely, 3.69 to 3.52, getting outpaced at distance. But inside the distance, putting up 3.39 points, allowing just 2 points a minute. So that's kind of where his biggest differential here is against his opponents. When he does win, 3 UFC wins, 94.5 points. That is not going to get it done pretty much at any salary, but any favorite salary. But I mean, 8,600 probably not going to get it done at 94.5 points. Opponents score 40 points when he does win. When Parker Porter loses, 3 points is what he puts up on average, and his opponents put up 115. So might not be a bad idea to roster some of Braxton Smith, even if he is a newcomer here. 6.2 strikes landed per minute for Porter, 50% takedown defense, spends 35% of his fight time inside the distance, controls almost 70% of that fight time. 107.24 ceiling, very low floor of 6 points. 2 of his 3 wins have touched triple digits. 30 points bonus per win on average. That is just decision win after decision win. And he's getting it done, man. 2 of those decision wins, he's put up triple digits. So can't knock that at all. 69, almost 70 strength of schedule. And Mr. Porter has made the optimal lineup in 1 of his past 4 fights since January 1st, 2021. Do I like Parker Porter for DraftKings? Not really, but he is going against a UFC debutant who, if he doesn't land a very early KO, as we've seen, we've seen time and time again, he's going to not do much. And if Parker Porter can take him off his feet, maybe he doesn't have much of a ground game, and this fight could be over. I mean, look at any heavyweight, low level heavyweight fight that we've seen lately, and you'll see that writing on the wall time and time again. So give me a little of Smith for the obvious early knockout potential, but give me some of Parker Porter too to grind this dude out for a decision win. And like I said, when Parker Porter goes to decision, in 2 of those 3 wins, he has hit triple digits. So I like to see that at 8,600, and I will have both sides of this one rostered. I'm probably picking the UFC veteran to win. I'd kind of be a fool not to, but that said, Braxton Smith could come in here and just put Parker Porter's lights out like he has been doing in all 5 of his wins. So I'm going to be playing this fight a little bit. I'm curious as to what the ownership's going to be, but I'm probably going to pick Parker Porter for the win. And here we go from heavyweights to strawweights. 150-pound difference, but this one should be a pretty decent strawweight fight. We've got Marina Rodriguez going against Virna Jandiroba. 8,500 for Rodriguez, 77 for Virna. I love this fight, man. Maybe not so much for DraftKings, but I like the fight just as a fan, from a fan's perspective. Overall, Marina, 2.8 points is what she scores per minute, allowing 2.71. At distance, 2.29 to just 1. She allows just 1 point per minute at distance, but inside the distance, she kind of is getting outscored 3 points a minute to 4.25. When she does win, and her exact record, so her 3-round strawweight record at UFC, or in the UFC rather, is 4-1-1. So in those 4 wins, she is averaging just 81.35 points, guys. And when she loses in her 1 loss, she gave up 101. 4.81 strikes landed per minute, 63% takedown defense, so a bit subpar there. 38.5% of her fight time fighting inside the distance, controls just 26.5% of that fight time. Very low ceiling, not even triple digits, 95.66. None of her 4 wins, 0% over 100 points, just 40 bonus points per win. 74 strength of schedule, so a very good strength of schedule there. 70-22 her last 5 opponents' record. Has yet to make the optimal lineup. 0 for 2 since 2021 at 3-round strawweight fight. So not really a fighter I'm looking to target at 8,500. 81 points per win, guys. 95 ceiling. That is not something I'm interested in. Has yet to score 100 points. Let's see if Virna at 7,700 dog salary is going to give us any kind of relief here. 3.13 points a minute to 2.53, so outscoring our opponents by 0.6 points a minute. At distance, it's basically even. Inside the distance, over a point better for Jandiroba, 3.42 to 2.34. Again, though, very low scores when she does win. She is 4-3 in the UFC and 4-3 in 3-round strawweight fights. 90.84 is what she averages in those 4 wins. Allows only 79 when she loses, so very low scoring fights for Virna Jandiroba. 2.45 strikes landed a minute. That is very low. 74% takedown defense, so 10 points higher than Rodriguez. 47% of her fight time inside the distance, controls 62% of the fight time, so the opposite of Rodriguez here. Under 100 points is Virna's ceiling. Again, that is very, very low. Only 1 of her 4 wins over 100 points, but that's 1 more than Marina. 65 bonus points per win, 67 strength of schedule, so 7 points less than Marina Rodriguez and 3 points under where you would want to be. And again, an offer from Virna Jandiroba. 0 for 3 as far as making the optimal lineup. So these women have had 5 fights since 2021 at the weight class. None times have they made the optimal lineup. So I'm going to, like I said at the beginning, I'm looking forward to watching this fight. I am not looking forward to rostering this fight, and I will probably sit this one out. I'll try to have very, very little exposure to Marina at 85 and Virna at 77. And here we've got a 3-round welterweight fight. The return of Chaos Williams. It's been almost a year to the day since he has fought. $9,500. One of the most, actually might be the most expensive fighter on the entire card. Going against Rolando Bedoya, the machine. We'll start with him. 14-1 is Bedoya here. Last 5, 5-0. Has yet to fight in the UFC. No Dana White Contender Series fights either. I have absolutely no stats for him except for a strength of schedule. Last 5 strength of schedule, 62.76. Not great, not the worst that we have on the card by any means. His last 5 opponents record, 62-34. And I don't know why it has his grappling time there. That should not be there, and that is not his grappling time. So next to no stats for Bedoya. He has 4 KO TKO wins, 3 wins by sub, 7-1 in decision fights. So a decent, he's 26 years old, 5'11", decent little record there at 14-0. So could be an interesting welterweight fighter going against a guy we know has power in his hands. He's 4-2, Chaos Williams, in the UFC, 3-2, 3-round welterweight fights. 77-inch reach here. That should come in handy. 2 wins by KO TKO for Chaos. And he's 1-2 in decisions at the weight class. 3 points a minute, allowing just 2 points a minute back at him. Inside at distance, rather, he's outscoring his opponents by a point. Inside the distance, he's outscoring them by 0.3 points, 3.12 to 2.82. DraftKings points per win, 3 wins, again, very low number, guys, 93.93. That is not even 10x at 9,500. I don't have to tell you that. When Chaos loses, he scores 38 points but gives up just 66, so next to no points when he loses. The guy is extremely tough to finish. 5 strikes landed per minute for Chaos Williams, 75% takedown defense. Spends only 16% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, but to his credit, when he is inside the distance, he's controlling 83% of that grappling time. Very high ceiling, 118.88, and a very high floor as well, 51.67. So maybe use Chaos Williams for cash a little bit more than GPP. Only 1 time Chaos has put up triple digits at the weight class. 63.33 bonus points per win. Strength of schedule is over that 70 mark, 71.7. But Chaos has yet to make the optimal lineup. 0 for 3 at the weight class since 2021. Chaos should win here. If you take everything out, 9,500 has like a 93, 94%, maybe even 95% win rate. 93% win rate. Let's see, 6,700 has 2 wins, I believe, in 42 attempts. I think it's 2 for 42. If you'll bear with me, let me just check here. 2 for 42. 4.76 optimal percentage, 4.76 win rate. So less than 5% win rate. I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in Rolando Bedoya. Give me Chaos Williams. Hopefully he finishes a fight here inside the distance. He has finished, let's see, Miguel Baeza. Semmelsberger was a decision. He did finish Abdul Razak Al Hassan, but his last couple fights, or both of his losses rather, have been decisions. 3 of his last 5 all decisions. So hopefully Chaos can get it done here at 9,500, put up a decent score. But like I said, in his 3 wins, only 93 points, 94 points if you round up on average. So he is going against the UFC newcomer here. That is good for Mr. Williams. Maybe he'll put the guy down relatively easily, but Williams' fights have been going longer lately, so I'm not banking on that. I'll probably be a little under the average, under the field as far as Chaos Williams. And Bedoya, I am not too interested in whatsoever. Probably won't have 0% of him, but 5% sounds just about right to me. Next up, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu going against Devin Clark. Kennedy, the big favorite here, $9K this week. $9,000 for Kennedy Nzechukwu, $7,200 for Clark. Let's start with the underdog in this one. This one is a 3-round light heavyweight fight. Clark is 14-7 as a pro, 8-7 in the UFC, but in 3-round light heavyweight fights, he is 7-6. In this promotion, has yet to finish a fight at this level, at the weight class rather. 7-1 in decisions, has been KO TKO twice and subbed 3 times. Overall pacing, outscoring his opponents by a point per minute, very good. At distance, it's basically even. Inside the distance, he's outscoring his opponents by 0.6 points per minute. DraftKings points per win leaves a ton to be desired, and that seems like a theme in these past couple fights, and it's definitely going to be repeating itself in this one. 92.5 points per win. This is over 7 wins for Mr. Devin Clark. He actually scored only 81 against Dawoon Jung, and I believe he made the optimal lineup in that fight. William Knight, he put up 107, but that's, I believe, his highest score so far in the UFC, I think. Don't quote me on that. When he loses, he gives up 102 points. So tons of points given up when Clark loses, but only 92.5 when he wins. Less than 3 strikes landed per minute. 61.29% takedown defense, leaves a lot on the table there. 62% of his fight time inside the distance, but he does control over 50% of that fight time. A decent ceiling, 111.5. His floor is okay at 24 points. 28.57. 2 out of 7 wins he has put up triple digits. Devin Clark, that is. Only 30 bonus points per win. That means he has yet, like I said, yet to finish a fight in the weight class. All 7 wins have gone to decision. 72.62 strength of schedule. Has made the optimal just 1 of 3 times since 2021. So Devin Clark outscoring his opponents from pretty much everywhere, but his overall scoring per win leaves a lot to be desired. At 7,200, if you really want to play him or you need a pump play, I guess I wouldn't mind a little bit of him, but don't expect a ton here, even though Kennedy Nzechukwu has been finished twice in his 3 UFC losses. 4 KO wins, though, 1-1 in decisions. Mr. Nzechukwu, 11-3 as a pro, 5-3 in 3-round light heavyweight fights. That is also his UFC record. 6-5, by far the tallest fighter on the card. 6'5", rather. 6'5" is what I meant. 83-inch reach. That is 8 inches more reach than Mr. Clark. 29 years old is all Kennedy is. Southpaw versus Orthodox here. Getting outpaced at overall 2.66 to 3. At distance, it's basically the same. Inside the distance, 2.34 to 3 points per minute is what's being scored on Kennedy. When he does win in his 5 UFC wins, even lower. 10 points almost. 9 points lower than Devin Clark. 83.75 points per win is all Kennedy's scoring. Let me look at some of these. He put up 91 against Ian Cutelaba, 106 against Roberson. He beat Danilo Marquez 57 points. He finished that fight. Kennedy finished Danilo Marquez in the 3rd round, KO TKO, 57 points in a finish win. So 83, less than 84 points per win, I'm not interested in at 9K. Only gives up 82 when he loses, so 0 points basically scored in Kennedy and Nzechukwu fights. Lands a strike per minute more than Devin Clark, 4.12, 82% takedown defense almost, 42% fight time fighting inside the distance, controls just under 50% of that fight time. Basically the same ceiling, 13 points higher floor than Clark here, but you are paying for that 9K to 7,200. Only 2 of Kennedy's 5 wins have been triple digits, 52 bonus points per win. One of the better strength of schedules on the entire card, guys, 77.89. His last 5 opponents' record, 58-10. And Kennedy, despite having a 57-point win,
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Has made the optimal lineup in 3 of his past 6 fights since January 1st of 2021. So that number is impressive. I don't know if he's just on some dog cards or some cards that just are not scoring well. 3 of 6, and optimal fighters generally fight optimally. We didn't see it with Mr. Simone this past weekend, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean we won't see it here. So I like Nzechukwu to get the win. Hopefully this fight finishes inside the distance. Even if it does, I do not expect anyone to score well. I will be fading this light heavyweight fight overall, and most likely scenario is it goes to decision and the winner scores 65 or 70 points, and that's being generous. So give me Nzechukwu for the win at 9K, but I am not paying 9K in GPPs. I will be fading this fight pretty hard. Now here is a true fight that you must target. Drew Dober, my guy from Omaha, 402, stand up, let's go. Drew Dober, 9,200 this week, going against Matt Frevola. You get Frevola at 7K. Listen to these numbers from Matt Frevola. Here's what you get for 7K. He is 4-3-1 in the UFC, so you are really rolling the dice here. 4-2-1 are what the stats we're looking at here is his exact stats. 5'9", 71-inch reach. Has won 2 of his, 4 wins at the weight class by KO/TKO. Listen to these numbers. 4.42 points a minute, allows 3.26, so allows a decent amount, but outscoring his opponents by over a point a minute. Getting outscored at distance, but just barely. Inside the distance, Matt Frevola, 8.86 points a minute, allowing just 3.71, so a ton of points allowed and scored inside the distance in Matt Frevola fights. When he wins, over 4 UFC wins, 105.77 for Frevola. When he loses, this is 2 UFC losses at the weight class at 3-round lightweight, which is what this fight is. Frevola averaging 34.6 points given up per loss, 4.34 strikes landed per minute. Also, he only scored 1.8 points on average in those 2 losses. 75% takedown defense, controls 78, almost 79% of all grappling time he's involved in. One of the highest ceilings on the entire card for Matt Frevola, 137.87. 2 of his 4 wins over 100 points, 60 bonus points per win, 74.5 strength of schedule, and has made the optimal lineup in 2 of 3 fights. Guys, some of these numbers are inflated because of the 158 points, if you recall, that he scored on Jandiroba Valdez when he knocked him down 4 times in the first round, landed 60 strikes, and had 34% control time in 3 minutes. What an insane fight that was. Then he turned that around and KO'd Otman Izatar in the first round, scoring 104.6. So Matt Frevola, and then he put, his last win before that was 75 points against Luis Pena. So he's all over the place. Matt Frevola is up and down like a freaking roller coaster here as far as scoring goes. Meaning at 7K, you're going to have to roster some of him. My guy, Drew Dober, 9,200. He is 12-7 in the UFC, 11-6 in 3-round lightweight fights, 9,200, 8 wins by KO/TKO. He has 1 sub win, 4 sub losses out of those 6 losses that I mentioned. Not a great look. 5'8", 70-inch reach. Getting outscored 3.07 points to 3.21 per minute. At distance, outscoring his opponents by 0.8 points, but inside the distance for Drew Dober, he's getting outscored 2.5 points to almost 4 per minute. So that is not a good look here. Frevola, if he uses his wrestling, could cause Drew Dober some problems. Drew Dober, another problem, only 98 points per win. This is over 11 wins. Let's take a look at his last couple. He put up, 93 against Bobby Green, 2nd round KO. He put up 80 against Alves, 3rd round KO, and he put up 110 against McKinney. That was a 1st round KO. That was an absolute barn burner. So obviously he scored better in in his 1st round win than the other wins, but either way, we're not putting up a ton of points even in finishes for Drew Dober. So keep your eye on that. Does not allow 98 points per loss, so that is a good look in his 6 UFC losses at the weight class. Lands 3.95 strikes a minute, only 58% takedown defense, and that's being generous. 41.6% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, controls only 41% of the grappling time. Average floor of 108, or average ceiling of 108, decent floor of 35 points. Let's see, 5 of 11 wins at the weight class have scored triple digits. So it's not bad, not great either. 5 of 11. 71.36 bonus points per win is a great number. 74.41 strength of schedule is a fantastic number. And those are pretty much even with Frevola, who is just 0.1 points above that. And Drew Dober making the optimal lineup only once out of 5 fights since 2021. I absolutely love this fight. Of course, I'm going to be rooting for my guy Dober from my hometown. But man, this is going to be a banger for as long as it lasts. I think somebody's getting finished here. And I think you need to roster both sides of this one. Obviously, Frevola, a great punt play this week at 7K. But if Drew Dober comes out here doing Drew Dober things, could easily pay off that 9.2K salary. Maybe not easily. As we said, he has been finishing fights and not even scoring 90, 95 points. So maybe he's not quite worth the 9,200 price tag we see this week. But Frevola, when he loses, as we said, gives up a ton of points, 134.6 on average. Against McKinney and against Sarukian, he gave up a ton of points, 125 it looks like. So Frevola loves to give up points when he loses. Dober doesn't score a ton when he wins, but he is expected to win this fight. I don't know, maybe that's a recipe for going a little under on Dober and a little bit over on Frevola. But either way, love this fight. We have reached the main card, UFC 288, and we have Charles Jourdain taking on Gracie, the return. You probably have either never heard that name or haven't heard that name in over 3.5 years, because that's how long it's been since he fought Cub Swanson, October 12th, 2019. For Gracie. Let's start here. $7,500 for the underdog, Mr. Gracie. 5-1 as a pro. 3-round flyweight or featherweight fight rather. 1-1 in the UFC. 2.77 points a minute is what he scored. 3.41 is what he allows. 2 points a minute at distance, gives up 3 points a minute. That one's pretty easy. Inside the distance though, scores very well. 6.39 points a minute, but gets almost 6 points a minute scored on him. 5.83. 98.22 DraftKings points per win. And when he does win, his opponent scored 1.6 points. When he lost, he scored almost 40, gave up only 87, landed 5.15 significant strikes per minute. No one's attempted a takedown against him. Spent 11% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance. Controlled almost 69% of that fight time. Very low ceiling, just what he scored in his only UFC win, 98. Obviously, that's less than 100, but it was, again, this is the third or fourth time we've seen this. A first round submission win. I believe it was a submission win. Yes, first round submission win. Didn't even score 100 points. Did not score triple digits. 64.21 strength of schedule. Very, very poor. His last 5 opponents pro record 123-77. My goodness. Obviously 0 for 0 times optimal since 2021. His opponent, Charles Jourdain, 8,700. The pride of Canada. 2 KO TKO wins in his 4 UFC, or two KO TKO victories out of his 4 UFC wins. He is 4-5-1 in the UFC, but at 3-round flyweight featherweight fights, he is 4-3-1. Only 27 years old here, trying to bounce back. Who was his last fight? He's lost 2 in a row, Shane Burgos and Nathaniel Wood, so no slouches there. 3.47 points a minute, outscoring his opponent by almost half a point per minute. At distance, it's almost a full point, but inside the distance is where Charles is giving up a ton of points. 3.2, allowing 4.57. When he does win in his 4 wins at the weight class, 105 points. When he loses, he scores almost 47, which is very, very high. Gives up only 86.28, so pretty good there defensively. 6.06 strikes landed per minute together. Crone and Charles land over 11 strikes per minute, guys. My goodness. 53% takedown defense. 29.5% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance. Controls 39% of that fight time. Charles has a ceiling of 117.78, a very high floor of 56.13, half. So 2 of his 4 UFC wins at the weight class, he's put up triple digits, 58.75 bonus points per win, and a 7 points higher strength of schedule in his last 5 compared to Gracie, 71.22. And Charles has made the optimal lineup only once, but still has made the optimal 1 out of 5 times at the weight class since 2021. Charles has not been too impressive lately, but again, he's lost to Nathaniel Wood, who I think is very good, and Shane Burgos, who is also pretty good. Lost to Julian Erosa, not the best look in the world, but Kron Gracie has not fought in 3.5 years. He's 5 years, actually 7 years older than Jourdain, so Jourdain could come out here and be a wild man and score well against Gracie, but man, Gracie catches him with anything, it could be over with. Jourdain has never been subbed in the UFC, it looks like, at least at the weight class. So I think I'm going to roll the dice with Jourdain here. I'll have a bit of Kron Gracie at 7,500, but I'm interested to see what his ownership is. Probably, I mean, what do you put your ownership on a guy that hasn't fought in 3.5 years? 20% with 28 fighters, something like that. So I'll probably be around that for him. Jourdain, probably a bit more than that, but I'm not going to go crazy on this opening main card fight. This seems like a very high variant fight. We could have a Jourdain early win. We could have a Gracie submission win. This one could go to decision with neither guy scoring well at all. So give me a little bit of both sides, but man, 8,700 for Jourdain could look like a steal. Same with Gracie at 7,500. Up next, we've got one of my personal favorites, Movsar Evloev, going against Bryce Mitchell. Bryce coming off a devastating, I believe, KO, TKO finish. No, it was a submission. Excuse me. It was a submission loss second round to Topuria. Mitchell, 6,800 this week, the second lowest salaried fighter overall. He is 15-1 as a pro, 6-1 in the UFC, 5-1 in 3-round featherweight fights. We have a southpaw versus orthodox matchup here. Mitchell, 3.78 points per minute is what he scores, allowing just 2.18. Fantastic. At distance, doesn't do much and doesn't allow much either. Virtually identical, as our homie Goldie would say. Inside the distance, though, Mitchell scoring 3.69 points per minute, allowing less than 2. So that's really where Bryce Mitchell shines. Nothing I really have to tell you. I'm sure you know of his grappling prowess. When he does win, though, this is over 5 wins at the weight class. 88 points per win, guys. That's it. 88 points per win. All 5 of his wins at the weight class are by decision. When he loses, he gives up 100.94, and that was to Ilia Topuria. Drops 2.54 strikes landed per minute. 33.3% takedown defense, spends 70% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, controls 71.5% of that fight time, so obviously that is Bryce Mitchell's game. Ceiling is decent, 115.74. 2 of his 5 wins over 100 points and 30 bonus points per win. As I said, all 5 wins coming via decision. 71.19 strength of schedule, has made the optimal lineup in 1 out of his past 2 fights since 2021. That would have been, if you'll just bear with me for 1 second, Edson Barboza, when he put up 123 points on Edson Barboza. Yeah, now we're going to look at Movsar Evloev. I said before, I'm biased. I love Evloev here. I'm so excited to see him fight again. It's been almost a year. 9,400, second highest salaried fighter on the entire card. 5 decision wins in his 5 3-round featherweight fights in the UFC. He is a perfect 16-0 overall. 6-0 in the UFC, again 5-0 in 3-round featherweight fights. 29 years old here. 5 points a minute is what Evloev scores. 5.04, allowing less than 2. At distance, he's outscoring his opponents by half a point per minute. Inside the distance is where he really shines. I know I said that for Mitchell, even more so. 6.68 points per minute. Inside the distance, allows just 1.82. When Movsar wins, he averages 105.6 points. No losses, obviously, as I said, he is undefeated. 4.13 strikes a minute, 70% takedown defense, spends 45.5% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, controls 90% of the fight time, or the grappling time that he's involved in, 90%. His ceiling's one of the highest on the card, 132.66. 3 of his 5 wins over triple digits, and all 5 of his wins have come by way of decision, 30 bonus points per win. So both of these guys have 10 UFC wins at the weight class, all 10 are decision victories, and a few of them, at least for Evloev, are scoring very, very well. 74.65 strength of schedule, has found himself optimal in 2 of 2 fights since 2021. I am, again, very much looking forward to Movsar Evloev fight here on Saturday against Mitchell. I think he gets it done. I don't think Mitchell is going to be able to do much against Movsar. I think Movsar is a beast. I think a lot of people are going to put a lot more respect on his name after this Mitchell fight. Unfortunately, Mitchell just lost to Topuria, so it's not going to have the same impact as if he was still undefeated, but it's going to be a good look if he gets a win here. And if Mitchell somehow pulls this off, I mean, I would be shocked. First of all, I might start to believe that the earth was flat if that's the case, but give me Movsar Evloev. He's going to be one of my highest ranked fighters, one of my highest owned fighters overall. Even at 9,400, I have no problem paying that. I love Evloev this week. I love all of his numbers. His wrestling game is superb, and I think he's going to be able to pull it off here against Mitchell. Even if he doesn't get the win, I think he can score very well in a 3-round decision victory. And next up, we have Jessica Andrade going back to strawweight to take on Yan Xiaonan at what should be an amazing fight. Andrade, 8,800, last fought at strawweight when she standing arm triangled Amanda Lemos back in 2022, and before that, it was her loss to Rose Namajunas back in 2020. Between there, she's been at flyweight, and I believe, I was going to say maybe bantamweight, but I don't think so, just flyweight. She is 24-10 as a pro, 15-8 in the UFC, 6-1 in 3-round strawweight fights. Those are all the stats that you see here for Jessica Andrade, just those 7 fights at strawweight, 3-round strawweight fights. She does very well in these fights, you guys. 2 KO TKO victories, 1 submission victory, 3 decision wins, ass whoop index of 21.58. She is working people over, scoring 5.85 points a minute, allowing 3.5 points less than that, 2.27 back at her. At distance, she's outscoring her opponents by 0.5 point per minute. Inside the distance, 3-round strawweight fights, 11.05 points a minute, allowing just 1.88 back at her. That's almost 10 points a minute, guys, difference. Scoring 123.3 points over 6 UFC wins at the weight class, and in her 1 loss, she gave up only 62.8. Lands 8.18 strikes a minute, 87.5% takedown defense, 30.5% of her total fight time fighting inside the distance, controls 96.41% of the total grappling time that she's involved in. 96%? Her ceiling is one of the highest on the card, even higher than Matt Frevola. No, maybe not. Well, maybe it was higher than Frevola. I don't remember. 139.7. And she has a decent floor, too, at 35.87. 5 of her 6 wins at the weight class have been triple digits. 56.67 bonus points per win. Very high strength of schedule in her last 5, 76.17, and she's made the optimal 0 out of 0 times since at the weight class. But my goodness, Jessica Andrade, one of the most prolific DraftKings scorers we've seen, but in 3-round strawweight fights, it's off the charts pretty much. 140 point ceiling, 123 per win, and this is over 6 wins at the weight class. My goodness. Let's see what Yan Xiaonan scores and gives up, more importantly. 7,400 this week. She is 7-2 in the UFC, 6-2 in 3-round strawweight fights. Scores 3.08 points a minute, allows 2.8, so pretty much identical. Outscoring her opponents at distance by 0.8 points per minute, and getting outscored inside the distance, 2.5 to 3.64. That is definitely not what you want to see when you're about to fight Jessica Andrade. Yan Xiaonan scores only 80.5 points per win over 6 UFC wins at the weight class. 80.5. I am not interested in Yan Xiaonan. I might just X her out of this fight. Maybe I can't X her out, but I could come pretty freaking close, I bet. When she did lose in 2 of her losses, she's averaging 99.5 points given up per loss. Lands 5.66 strikes a minute, 65.22% takedown defense. Again, not something you want to see when you're fighting Jessica Andrade. 30% of her fight time inside the distance, controls just 26% of the total fight time to Jessica's 96%. Has a ceiling of less than triple digits, 37-point floor, not bad. 1 of her 6 wins, just 1 of Jan's 6 wins have been triple digits. Other than that, 30 bonus points per win, 74.48 strength of schedule. and she's made the optimal lineup 0 out of 2 times since 2021 at the weight class. I love Jessica Andrade here. 8,800 I think is a fantastic price to pay. I think she'll do a number on Yan Xiaonan. I think she's dominant at this weight class. She is absolutely dominant in 3-round strawweight fights. So very interested in her. Yan Xiaonan scores 80.5 points per win. I don't like that at all. So give me a ton of Andrade and probably not much of Yan Xiaonan. The co-main event of the evening between Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad should be a 5-round banger. 8,200 for Gilbert Burns this week, 8K for Belal Muhammad, and I assure you, I did not have to re-record this because I just found out that the co-main event was 5 rounds. Of course, I didn't have to do that. I'm a professional. I only had to do this once because I knew the whole time it was 5 rounds. Come on, guys. Give me some credit.
I didn't fucking do this!
We'll start with Gilbert Burns here. 22-5 as a pro, 15-5 in the UFC, 3-2 in his last 5, 1-1 in 5-round welterweight fights, which is what the stats you see on the screen. Those are directly from those 2 fights. So not a huge sample size from either guy, but over 30 minutes of cage time between both of them. I mean, 35 minutes for Burns and a little over 30 minutes for Belal Muhammad. So not zero. It's a decent amount. Gilbert has been KO'd in one of those 2 fights, and one went to a decision. 2.5 points overall per minute is what he scores, allows 2.32, so he's got the advantage over his opponents there. At distance, allowing just 1.67, scoring just 1.67 and allowing 2.16 points a minute. Inside the distance, he's dominating his opponents by over a point per minute, 2.93 to 1.87. In his one win in 5-round welterweight fights, 102 points is what he put up, allowing 23.6. And when he lost, he gave up almost 104. 3.6 strikes landed per minute, 100% takedown defense in these 2 fights. In his last 5, it is significantly lower than that, it should be noted, 33% in his last 5. The 2 welterweight fights that he was involved in, one was the Kamaru Usman fight, and then it was the fight right before that would have been Tyron Woodley. So those are the 2 fights where these stats come from here. But in his last 5 fights, Gilbert Burns, 33% takedown defense. Let's see. Controls 36%, 36% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, controls 62% of that time. 102 points for his ceiling, 20 points for floor. That's just what he scored in his win and his loss. 30 points is what he put up in his win as far as bonus points goes. 75.29 strength of schedule, very good for his last 5 opponents. 111 and 36 is their record. And he has made the optimal 0 out of 1 time since 2021, and that would have been the Kamaru fight. So yeah, these stats are from the 5-round welterweight fight. Nothing's really jumping off the page for me in his last 5 fights stat-wise, except he scores 89 points per win. That is not very good at all. And now you want $8,200 for him. I mean, we're technically over 10x, but just barely. He's scoring a little over a point per minute in takedowns and control time in his last 5. Has not knocked anyone down in his last 5, but has been knocked down. So mix those stats with what you see on the screen, and that's kind of what you get with Gilbert Burns here. This one's going to be a banger. I just don't know about Gilbert Burns for DraftKings, however. Belal Muhammad, 2.74 points a minute. 1.54 is what is allowed. At distance, he's getting outscored, but inside the distance, guys, in 2 5-round welterweight fights, one was Leon Edwards and one was Vicente Luque, 4.7 points per minute inside the distance, allows 0.36 points back at him. Absolutely amazing. Put up 107 points in his win. Has no losses there. The Leon fight was a no contest. 2.24 strikes landed per minute. 100% takedown defense. Spends 30% of his fight time fighting inside the distance. Controls 90% of all grappling time. Ceiling floor is pretty straightforward. 72 strength of schedule. 96 and 36 is his last 5 opponents record. And he did make the optimal lineup in that Luque fight. 1 of 1 since 2021. Belal Muhammad scoring 10 points more in his last 5 per win compared to Gilbert Burns, just under 100, 3.5 points per minute, allowing just 1.5. So some very good numbers here, scoring 1.37 points a minute in takedowns and control time put together in his last 5. So I love this fight. I think it's going to be a banger of a fight. I actually favor Belal Muhammad as far as picking a winner, but I think for DraftKings, man, I'm going to be fading Gilbert Burns just a little bit. I'm going to be fading this fight overall as a whole. I just don't see how it scores well, especially if it goes to decision. I mean, being 5 rounds does help, but how much is that really going to help? So I'm going to be fading this one a little bit. I'll probably have more exposure to Belal Muhammad and a little bit less on Gilbert Burns. The Funk Master, Aljamain Sterling, and Henry Cejudo, Triple C, the king of cringe himself, has not fought in the UFC in almost 3 years to the day. Last beat Dominic Cruz in a fantastic second round KO TKO victory. Marlon Moraes, Dillashaw, Demetrius Johnson, and Sergio Pettis. Again, he is taking on Aljamain, the Funk Master, Sterling. Like I said, both guys $8,100 this week, so we have not seen those $8,100 salaries in about a year, if I had to guess. Sterling 14-3 in the UFC, 3-0 in 5-round bantamweight fights. The 33-year-old scores 3.70 points per minute overall, and allows just 2.74 back at him, and those are in those 5-round bantamweight fights. At distance, he's getting outscored, but just barely. Inside the distance, though, he is doing pretty well. 4 points a minute, 2.36 is what he allows. 112.35 is his average DraftKings points per win in his 3 5-round bantamweight wins. And his opponents score almost 49 points when he does win. No losses, 4.34 significant strikes landed per minute, a 0% takedown defense, and the weight class and 5-round fights, 0% takedown defense, 54.78% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, and Aljo controls 65.29% of that grappling time. His ceiling, one of the highest on the entire card, on a card full of high ceilings, 140.77. What an incredible number. 24-point floor. One of his 3 5-round bantamweight wins has netted him triple-digit score. 46.67 bonus points per win. 77 strength of schedule. And Aljo has made the optimal lineup in 2 out of 3 fights in the 5-round bantamweight division. Fantastic numbers from Aljamain Sterling. I will definitely be rostering him in this one. You'd be a fool not to have him in your lineups. Now let's look at Cejudo's numbers. Again, has not fought in almost 3 years. Is 10-2 in the UFC, 2-0 in 5-round bantamweight fights. 3.42 points a minute to 1.47, outpacing his opponents at distance as well by a half a point per minute. Inside the distance, Henry Cejudo averaging, again, in his 2 5-round bantamweight fights, 12.70 points a minute, allowing only 0.69 back at him. That's a difference of 12 points a minute at the weight class. That is insane. I think that's over almost 25 minutes of fight time. 12.7 to 0.7 points per minute inside the distance. My goodness. A lot of that, no, that's wrong. I was going to say some of that might be a fly. These are in his 2 5-round bantamweight fights. Scores 99, basically 100 points per win. No losses. 5.76 significant strikes landed per minute. A 100% takedown defense. 11.68% of his total fight time fighting in the distance, and he controls 100% of that fight time, ceiling of 107.22. One of his 2 wins over 100 points, 57 bonus points per win, 77, almost 78 strength of schedule, one of the best numbers on the entire card. Last 5 opponent record, 110-30, and obviously hasn't fought in 3 years, so he has not made the optimal lineup since 2021. Guys, these numbers are insane. You have got to target this fight. I think the winner is going to score extremely well, and at 8,100, they have a very, very good chance of making the optimal lineup. In fact, when these 2 salaries fight each other, I believe the optimal rate is about 35, almost 36%. So a great fight to target here with 2. The definition of the mid-range salaries here at 8,100. I'm going to be picking Sterling, mostly because I'm biased, but also I think he does get this one done. He's being constantly, just undervalued, I think, in my opinion. Now, that said, Henry Cejudo is probably one of the most athletic guys that the UFC has ever seen in any weight class. So we're going to see how this 3 years off has treated him. But man, how could you ignore Sterling? I'm going to have both of these guys rostered, but I think I'm going to pick Sterling to get the win here and retain his title, keep that bantamweight streak alive, and we'll see what happens. If he loses, he's probably going up to featherweight. So we're going to see what happens here. Man, this is going to be one hell of a way to cap off UFC 288 here. Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo. What a fantastic main event. And with the card taken care of, there's only a couple things left to do. Let's start us off by getting CM Monk's picks for UFC 288.
Oh, fuck. A clown pewter? Fuck that. Probably got no game.
And here we are, CM Monk's picks for UFC 288. Man, we got 14 amazing fights here, in my opinion. Most of them. Okay, maybe not 14 amazing fights, but a lot of them are very, very good. As you can see, CM Monk is this thing that I built. It picks fights, it picks winners, it picks the method. That's about it. You can see him right below me. He's got a computer monitor for a head. Can you believe it? CM Monk. Let's go through his picks real quick. Yellow is underdogs, blue our favorite, according to DraftKings salaries. So let's start us off. A lot of yellow here. Munoz Jr. over Santos by decision. Joseph Uglyman Holmes over Ribeiro by finish. Rafael Estevam by decision over Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Loses another decision, does Zhalgas. Newcomer Ikram Aliskerov going against Phil Hawes, wins by finish. Parker Porter over newcomer Braxton Smith by finish. Underdog Virna Jandiroba by decision over Marina Rodriguez. K.S. Williams by decision over newcomer Rolando Bedoya. Kennedy Nzechukwu by finish over Devin Clark. Matt Frevola, the underdog win over Drew Dober by finish. Charles Jourdain by decision over Gracie. Bryce Mitchell by finish over Movsar Evloev. This is the one fight that I will go. I am not picking Bryce Mitchell to beat Evloev personally. This is CM Monk's picks, not mine. I will be on the Evloev side by finish. Mitchell by finish. Get out of here. Jessica Andrade by finish over Jandiroba. Gilbert Burns loses to Belal Muhammad by decision. That would be humongous for Muhammad. And in the main event, this is not technically an underdog pick according to DraftKings. They are both even salaried. Henry Cejudo over Aljamain Sterling. Man, I really hope it doesn't go that way. I will be on the Sterling side for sure, but again, I am very biased there. Those are CM Monk's picks for UFC 288. There's only one thing left to do. Let's check out the Monk pick of the week, the most owned, no-nonsense pick of the week. It has been rough lately if you've been following me making these Monk picks of the week. The most owned, no-nonsense picks of the week are very, very tough for me lately. Man, it's been a rough go. We're trying it again. UFC 288 pay-per-view time. The Monk pick of the week, the most owned, no-nonsense pick of the week for the pay-per-view is going to be $8,800 for Jessica Andrade over Yan Xiaonan. Guys, if you didn't see it, go back and watch the breakdown I did just a few minutes ago. Jessica Andrade's numbers are insane at the weight class. Absolutely, I mean, as close to off the charts as you could get. Meanwhile, Yan Xiaonan gives up a ton of points inside the distance. And last time we saw Andrade at strawweight, she's standing arm triangled, one of the best fighters in the division, Amanda Lemos. So give me Jessica Andrade. She will be my most owned, no-nonsense pick of the week for UFC 288. Let's go. We did it, guys. We made it through all 14 fights. UFC 288, a huge pay-per-view going down Newark, New Jersey this Saturday. I'm extremely excited for this one. Some absolute bangers on this card, like we said. Hopefully you enjoyed the breakdown. Again, very much looking forward to Sterling. Very much looking forward to Evloev. One more time, guys. 10% off your subscription package at dfsarmy.com. Be sure to check that out. I don't have anything else, guys. You can check out Salary Voodoo coming later in the week. You can find me on Pump Sports Radio. You can find me on the MMA Engine with Monk. Yep, I am Monk. With Wheezy, Brady, and Lou Betya, doing all kinds of shows every single day before each and every card, especially pay-per-view cards. So be sure to check us out over there. And guys, there's nothing left to say. Without further ado, I hope all of you enjoyed the fights. So, enjoy. We will see you in the next one.